Chai, the civilization that vanished in 24 hours, and nobody knows why. In 1200 BCE, the most advanced civilization on Earth abandoned their cities overnight. 3,000 years later, archaeologists found their final message carved into the walls. Here is what makes this terrifying. These were not primitive people. They had flush toilets, running water, multi-story buildings, a written language we still cannot fully decode. And in a single day, maybe less, they walked away from everything. Left food on tables, left gold in vaults, left their dead unburied. Modern historians call it the Bronze Age collapse. But that name hides something darker, because collapse implies a slow decline. This was not a decline. This was an extinction event. What you are about to learn changes how you understand human civilization itself. Because this was not one culture that vanished. It was all of them. Every major power, every trading empire, every kingdom that had stood for 1,000 years, gone within 50 years of each other, some within months. The Hittites, the Mycenaeans, the Kassites of Babylon, the Canaanites, kingdoms stretching from Greece to Iran to Egypt. All of them collapsed. And the mystery that has haunted archaeologists for over a century is this. They found the final messages these civilizations left behind. Desperate pleas carved into clay tablets, warnings sent between kings, and those messages describe something coming, something that arrived by sea, something that could not be stopped. I am going to show you exactly what those messages said. I am going to take you inside the palace at Ugarit on its final night. And by the end of this, you will understand why some researchers believe we are closer to a repeat of this event than at any point in human history. It is 1185 BCE. You are Amurapi, the last king of Ugarit. Your city sits on the coast of modern-day Syria. For 400 years, your family has ruled one of the wealthiest trading ports in the ancient world. Ships from Egypt dock in your harbor. Merchants from Cyprus sell copper in your markets. Your scribes write in 5 different languages because business demands it. But tonight, you are writing something different. A clay tablet, a letter to the king of Alashia, modern Cyprus. Your hands are shaking as you press the reed into wet clay. The words you write will survive for 3,187 years. Archaeologists will find this tablet in 1973, buried under the ruins of your palace. Here is what it says. My father, behold, the enemy's ships came. My cities were burned, and they did evil things in my country. Does not my father know that all my troops and chariots are in the land of Hatti, and all my ships are in the land of Luca? Thus, the country is abandoned to itself. May my father know it. The 7 ships of the enemy that came here inflicted much damage upon us. 7 ships. Just 7. And they destroyed everything. Now here is what makes this tablet extraordinary. We found the response. The king of Alashia wrote back, and his message is chilling in its helplessness. As for the matter concerning those enemies, it was the people from your country and your own ships who did this. And it was the people from your country who committed these transgressions. Read that again. Your own people, your own ships. The enemies were not invaders from some distant land. They were refugees, desperate people from other collapsed kingdoms, people fleeing something even worse. Amurapi never received this response. By the time it arrived, Ugarit was ash. His palace was burning. And every single inhabitant had vanished. But vanished to where? That question, that impossible question, is why I need to show you what was happening 500 miles away. Hattusa, the capital of the Hittite Empire, 1,000 miles of territory, a standing army of 50,000 soldiers, treaties with Egypt, carved in silver and displayed in temples. For 300 years, the Hittites were the superpower of the Bronze Age. In 1180 BCE, their empire contains over 3 million people. By 1178 BCE, it contains 0. Not reduced, not conquered, abandoned. Every single city, every temple, every fortress, empty. Archaeologists excavating Hattusa in the 1930s found something that still defies explanation. The city was systematically dismantled before it was abandoned. Temples were carefully emptied. Sacred statues were removed and taken. Somewhere. The population did not flee in panic. They organized, they packed, they performed what appear to be final religious rituals. And then they walked into the mountains. 3 million people, into terrain where no empire could follow, and none ever found them. The Hittites did not collapse. They chose to disappear. Think about what that means. The most powerful empire in the Bronze Age looked at what was coming and decided that vanishing into wilderness was preferable to facing it. What were they running from? The Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses III tells us, and his account is preserved on the walls of his mortuary temple at Medinet Habu. 200 feet of carved stone depicting a battle that decided the fate of civilization. The inscriptions are specific. They name the enemy. The foreign countries made a conspiracy in their islands. No land could stand before their arms. They were coming forward toward Egypt while the flame was prepared before them. The Sea Peoples. That is what historians call them. A confederation of raiders from across the Mediterranean who appear in Egyptian records between 1250 and 1150 BCE. And what makes them genuinely terrifying is that Egypt, the only power that survived, describes them not as an army, but as a migration. Whole populations, men, women, children, loaded onto ships, coming by the thousands. They were not invading. They were fleeing. Now here is where the mystery deepens into something that feels uncomfortably modern. In 2012, a team led by archaeologist Eric Klein published a comprehensive analysis of the Bronze Age collapse. They examined every theory: invasion, earthquake, drought, disease, and their conclusion was unsettling. It was all of them. At once. Tree ring data from 2013 confirmed a catastrophic drought began around 1200 BCE and lasted for 150 years. Agricultural systems that had fed millions failed within a decade. The trade networks that connected these civilizations, bronze requires tin from Afghanistan, copper from Cyprus, grain from Egypt. Those networks depended on stability. When one kingdom fell, the supply chains broke. When supply chains broke, other kingdoms fell. The domino effect was total. But here is the detail that haunts researchers. These were the most sophisticated civilizations on Earth. They had writing, they had mathematics, they had engineering that would not be replicated for 1,000 years. And they could not adapt. Why? Because their systems were too complex, too interdependent, too specialized. A scribe in Ugarit could write contracts in 5 languages but could not farm. A bronze smith in Mycenae could forge weapons that would not be surpassed until iron technology matured, but without tin shipments from Central Asia, his skill was worthless. Complexity made them powerful. Complexity made them fragile. If stories like this fascinate you, the hidden patterns beneath history, subscribe. I upload one of these every single week. And here is something that connects directly to right now. Modern small businesses face a version of this same challenge. Complex systems, interdependent tools, specialized knowledge that becomes worthless when platforms change. The smart ones are using AI to build resilience. Tools like 11 Labs at try11labs.io 2PU1099Y92JL1. Let a single person do what used to require entire teams. Voice synthesis, content creation, translation. The kind of flexibility that might have saved Ugarit. The Mycenaeans, the Greeks of the Bronze Age, the civilization that would later inspire Homer's Iliad, left us something extraordinary in their collapse. The Linear B tablets. These were administrative records, inventories, ration lists. Boring, bureaucratic clay tablets that survived because they were accidentally fired when the palaces burned. The final tablets from Pylos, dated to approximately 1180 BCE, record a civilization preparing for an attack that never comes from the direction they expect. They list emergency troop deployments. They record bronze collected from temples to forge weapons. They mention watchers stationed along the coast. But then the entries stop. The final readable tablet from Pylos is a list of rowers assigned to ships. 30 ships, approximately 600 men. The tablet is incomplete. The scribe stopped mid-word. Whatever happened, it happened fast. And across the Aegean, in Mycenae itself, archaeologists found something that still raises questions. The Lion Gate, the famous entrance to the citadel, was bricked up from the inside. The surviving population sealed themselves in. It did not save them. This is the part most documentaries leave out. The part that makes the Bronze Age collapse genuinely disturbing rather than merely interesting. The survivors. Not everyone died. Not everyone disappeared. Small communities continued in scattered locations. Villages, fishing settlements, places too remote or too poor to interest raiders. And these survivors, for 400 years, they did not rebuild. We call this period the Greek Dark Ages. From 1100 to 750 BCE, the population of Greece dropped by 90%. Writing disappeared. Not temporarily, completely. The knowledge of Linear B died with the scribes. It would be 4 centuries before Greeks developed a new writing system based on Phoenician characters. 400 years of silence. Think about what that means. In 1180 BCE, the average person in Mycenaean Greece lived in a society with palaces, trade goods from 3 continents, olive oil exported to Egypt, bronze weapons forged by specialists. Their grandchildren lived in mud huts.